Hello, I'm John Feldt. Welcome to the weekly water outlook for the Midwest. Well, last week I mentioned that the jet stream was going to be highly amplified, and that meant highly amplified precipitation and temperature patterns, and that has indeed occurred across the nation. Across the western U.S., you can see a ridge of high pressure has bowed well to the north, unusually far to the north, and over to the east it's dipped well to the south. And that has really shaped precipitation patterns and trends and temperature patterns and trends. Over the western U.S., you've heard about the record-setting heat. Over the eastern and middle part of the nation, it has gotten a lot cooler, and parts of the east quite showery and wet as well. So if I look at the past 7 days observed precipitation, it's a fairly complicated pattern over the Midwest. Parts of the Midwest are tending on the dry side. Parts of the Midwest are tending or trending on the wet side. Now, this was the total precipitation last week. Red is 5 inches of rain. And if you remember that jet stream flow, this precipitation is moving right along that upper flow. And the eastern parts of the Midwest, from eastern Iowa into Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, has been quite wet over the last week. Now, western parts of the Midwest, western parts of the Dakotas and Nebraska, that area is getting quite dry, and it could use some rain, and that did not receive much rain over the last 7 days. So if we look at surpluses or deficits, the yellow are moderate surpluses, up to about an inch of precipitation that was lost last week compared to normal. But if we look at those streaks of rain, you can see that we picked up anywhere from an inch to as much as 3 or 4 inches in spots. Now, this is typical of summertime. You can see it's pretty scattered. We have areas here that have received significant surplus of rain, not too far away. It's neutral. So we're going to see that during the summer months, quite variable pattern. But I think generally the story from last week is this area here received generally surplus amounts of rain, and then this area in here received less than normal rainfall. Now, I wanted to look a little bit deeper into this. I looked at the past 14 days on the left, and I looked at the past 30 days on the right. And what we see here is the more recent pattern, the 14-day pattern, was that wet pattern I've talked about, which has occurred in this area, and then a little bit more spotty over the western part. But look at Iowa here. The western part of Iowa has seen some significant drying, as well as northern Missouri, over the last 14 days. And you can see that showing up at the longer average as well, the 30-day average. So I think when we're looking at these trends from the mid-range, this is the axis of wetter type precipitation, and then more scattered and recent drying out over western parts of the Midwest. So the jet stream this week, I have in blue the forecast jet stream, and it's not going to change a whole lot from what we saw late last week. We're going to continue that highly amplified pattern, and that's going to mean similar type precipitation patterns. And maybe by late this week, it might moderate a bit, but that's still going to be a tendency for a ridge to the west, a trough to the east, right into the early or middle part of July. Matter of fact, if I put the steering winds for the 6 to 10 day outlook, what you see here is fairly similar. It might not be quite as strongly amplified as we've seen. It might straighten out from time to time, but still this is the predominant flow. And in a nutshell, what that will mean will be cooler temperatures for most of the Midwest, and it'll mean above normal precipitation over eastern parts of the Midwest, normal over central parts of the Midwest, and then below normal over western parts of the U.S. Now here's a model. This is not a human forecast. A forecaster did not make this. This is a model guidance. This shows the potential for precipitation over the next 7 days. You can sort of see what I said is generally heavier over parts of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, and then getting back to more modest precipitation further to the west. And matter of fact, you see in this region here, the model's not forecasting any precipitation over the next 7 days. And I think anywhere in this range right here, the Dakotas, that's going to be relatively light amounts of rain. So you see the official forecast, the NOAA forecast here, that backs that up with very dry conditions over the western and middle parts of the Midwest, and then increasing as we go east. So from the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, most of Missouri, most of Iowa, it looks like a very dry week, and then increasing precipitation once you're under the influence of that trough further to the east. Now temperatures with that upper trough, they've dipped down well below normal over the middle part of the nation, well above normal over the west. You can see that the core of cooler temperatures in the 6 to 10 day outlook are shaded in that blue. So near normal temperatures in the upper Midwest. The lower Midwest looks like it's going to be cooler than normal. 6 to 10 day outlook does show some scattered precipitation. It's interesting. This is the model here. It does show a little bit of enhancement of precipitation in the upper Midwest. This will be needed. We want to get a little bit more precipitation up in this region. And 6 to 10 days is out there a ways, but I'll keep an eye on that. What worries me here is that it still looks like the area that's tending towards lighter precipitation is right in here, and then east of this line, wet. So I think generally speaking, even out through 10 days, wet over this area, or above normal over this area, and below normal precipitation to the west. Now just taking a look at a couple other rainfall guidance. These are models. Here's the 6 to 10 day. The red is heavy rain, the yellow is moderate rain, and the blue is light precipitation. So you can see it does at least try to forecast some precipitation over Kansas or Nebraska and Iowa in the 6 to 10 day. And then in the 8 to 14 day, it expands it a bit. Now, it does look like North Dakota stays dry through that period with below normal precipitation. But we'll see if this trend, I'll keep an eye on this 8 to 14 days. That's quite a ways out there. But at least it does show that it might pull it a little bit further west, which by that time, I think we can use some rain in that area. So the takeaway points from today's briefing: continued amplified pattern across the nation with cooler than normal temperatures over the core of the Midwest. Eastern sections of the Midwest, moderate rainfall, while western sections less than normal. Not much change into early July. Now, I have a lot of information coming out this week. I have my newsletter going out towards the middle of the week and blogs throughout the week. A lot going on as we get into the key growing season as far as precipitation and temperature patterns. Thanks for listening to this week's briefing. I'll be talking with you again next week.